Hi, I'm Alex Weathersby, and this is my web series review for Marianne and Elinor Take Barton. This is a vlog-style series about college freshman Marianne Dashwood and her adventures with love and friendship during her freshman year of university. It's based on Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, which happens to be my favorite Jane Austen novel. One thing that I thought was really interesting about this series that I didn't actually think of until I saw it in a comment was that I've never seen a Jane Austen web series adaptation that wasn't done by people who aren't actually British. The fact that they used actors who have British accents and go to a university in the UK was really cool for me, and I think it really adds kind of a new layer of how they understand the text because it is part of their culture. I felt that most of the actors had really good chemistry. The chemistry between the Elinor character and the Edward character was really good. I love them so much. Oh my gosh, I love Elinor and Edward in anything. The sisterly connection between Elinor and Marianne, I felt it was very natural. All the friendships seemed very natural to me, so I thought the chemistry in that was really good. I liked the modernization of certain elements. Some characters were merged in order to make the narrative make more sense. Instead of being connected purely through Edward, Lucy Steele and Marianne are both on the same freshman floor. They know each other from that. And then Charlotte, she's kind of the gossipy woman type character, but put in a flighty, flirty college freshman body. She kind of tries to matchmake all her friends and talks about her boyfriend who she loves so much all the time. And so I just thought that that was a really nice modern connection between what the characters represented at the time and then what they would mean to us now. I also really liked the pacing of the web series. I never felt at any point that there was anything that wasn't super plot relevant or characterization relevant happening. I felt like everything was done very well, everything moved along at the right time, all the romantic relationships happened at a good pace, and when it was maybe happening too fast, a lot of other characters would point that out, so it wasn't just me sitting here being like, whoa, she's in love with him, it has been real quick. I think they were also very aware of their pacing, and I think that's a really good trait for a web series to have. One thing that I did not like about this web series was I felt Will had a very mixed up characterization. At some points I felt he was one person, at other points I felt he was another person, and maybe that was intentional, but it didn't seem natural to me. It just felt like he was one person when it was convenient for the narrative, and then he was another person when it was convenient for that part of the narrative. He didn't ever feel like a whole person. That definitely took me out of the narrative a little bit. One thing that that web series love to do when they adapt Sense and Sensibility is they love to try to humanize the Willoughby character. This web series tried to do that, but it just didn't make sense for me. I also disliked the fact that in the modernization there was no people of color in the cast and there were no LGBT characters. I feel if you're doing anything in a way that you want to be creative and you want to be new, you do have to look for those stories because that's what people are like. People just deserve to have their stories told, and it doesn't have to be anything super controversial or anything super special. It's just their stories, so they should be added. And so that was just something that I noticed definitely right away after a few episodes. I was a little put off by it, just because that's not what the world looks like. That's never really been what the world looks like. Another thing I didn't like was that they're kind of like the Lizzie Bennet diaries, there was some slut shaming. There were some words I'd never heard before. Mixing like lacrosse with a slur for sex workers. I'd never heard that in my life. There was an immediate jump from characters that were presented as being very immoral and doing horrible things. Oh, well, she's a slut too, so clearly she's a bad person. I just felt that that was a really sad thing to do, and it didn't really ingratiate me to the characters. I feel if somebody does something bad, you shouldn't immediately try to shame them via sexual behavior or insinuate that they make other immoral sexual choices. And I don't really think it's an excuse to be like, well, freshman girls really say that. It's like, well, LGBT freshman girls and freshman girls of color also exist, but they weren't in the series, so. I would watch this series if you really like Jane Austen and her more romantic comedic novels, because this is an adaptation of a Jane Austen work and I really enjoyed it in that context. If you also really enjoy Jane Austen's works, including Sense and Sensibility, or if Sense and Sensibility is your favorite like it is mine, then I would definitely watch this series. If you always kind of wanted to get into Marianne's head, if she was a character you really resonated with, or you always kind of wondered what her thought process was, she is the main character in this series. She's the one who's making all the vlogs. So if she's the character that you really related to, or you always wanted to see put in the main character role, then this might be a really good web series for you to watch. And if you like a lot of quick-paced dialogue, if you kind of like that Gilmore Girls style of fast-paced humor and a lot of things happening at once, it's very natural, it's very realistic, then this might be a good web series for you. If you want episodes that are a lot shorter and easier to get through, especially if you like to marathon, or if you want a web series that looks at a lot more serious topics, love and friendship kind of play the majority of the plot points in this web series. So if you're looking for something that deals with maybe some more serious topics, like what are they studying? What jobs do they want? Do they fear the question of whether they'll be able to get those jobs if they get out? How is it being far away from home? Or then even just themes that are mentioned in the book that aren't really explored in the series very much. So maybe you might want to look for another web series. Their aunt and their brother who takes a lot of their money and forces them to move. That's not a huge plot point in this series. It's not mentioned very much, and it doesn't have a huge effect on the series as a whole, which was refreshing because a lot of other web series I've seen that adapt this definitely do make that a huge point. If you really dislike Marianne, and if you always felt that she was just kind of bratty and you don't really care about her problems, and the whole thing with Will's just so frustrating for you and you just can't stand her, then maybe this isn't a good web series for you. It might be a good way for you to kind of gain sympathy for her maybe, but if you just don't want to watch a series about a character you don't like, that's totally fair. If Marianne is a character that really, really bugs you, you might not enjoy this web series, so